On behalf of Akuno Senko for Bay, you know what I'm saying? Jay, where you at? We trying to help our people elevate. Hope. Hope. We giving them hope. We doing what we gotta do, you know. Every day, one step at a time, man. We gonna make it happen. Helping our people elevate. Yeah. Sometimes I practice, focus, thought, and meditate. I'm trying to come with other ways to help our people elevate. And seeking knowledge make me levitate. The lifted mental state is what results from how we orchestrate. This for the family's sake. Let's self-reflect and self-evaluate. And every day, make sure the steps you take, you calculate. Receive a master's fate. I know I can't exist without the hate, but that's okay. I balance that with higher self today. Success is on this way, and after that, my flesh can pass away.
I would like to give a special honor to this brother that we have today. Introduce yourself, brother, to the people. Tell them who you are and where you're from.
Islam. First, I'd like to give praise to Allah, and give honors to our illustrious and industrious forefathers, our ancestors, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, the Noble Jew Ali. I also want to give honors to you, my brother, for providing this platform of being able to get the message out regarding, social issues, community issues, Moorish issues, and whatnot. I am Cozmo Ill, known as the Minister of Culture to the Moors, also Grand Sheikh of Moorish Science Temple of America, California, former Khalifa Council member, and your brother, Islam.
Islam. Can you tell the people a little about what it's like where you grew up?
Islam, yes. So I grew up in primarily Long Beach, California, until my late teens. Went to Long Beach Polytechnic High School. After that, I moved to Los Angeles and attended some of the local colleges out there. Primarily growing up in Long Beach, it was a very interesting experience. It was during the time when you had, and I always tell this story, the thing that I remember most growing up was breakdancing and pop locking, because that was the era that we were in. It was before this hyper gangster culture that we have right now. I mean, when brothers literally would meet on the corner with their cardboard and dance it out instead of fighting it out. In the city, they pretty much outlawed breakdancing and these type of things, and that's when you started to see gang banging coming back. Crack cocaine hit the community hard. I was in a decent area, but pretty much hood, growing up. But I didn't really get touched by a lot of the hood stuff because I ended up coming in contact with the Moors early in age. Well, let me say, I can say I got touched by the hood stuff early in age, but I pretty much got out of it early in age by coming into consciousness. Around the house, my mother was very open-minded mother. She played a lot, before the internet, she played a lot of documentaries. So there was a lot of documentaries going on in the house. A lot of this information about ancient Egypt, Stonehenge, Maya, Aztec, Toltec, and ancient civilizations, I came in contact with as a child, just as my mother watched different programs. So I picked up on a lot of that stuff, and that's what kind of brought me into the movement early. Once they outlawed breakdancing on the street, gang banging and pop locking, the gang banging itself started to come in. Pop locking and breakdancing was already going out, and I kind of fell in more with rhyming and MCing. And this was early. This was late mid '80s, and so this was before, of course, Snoop, and before hip hop had really become what it is right now. And so at that time, you either went into rhyming, basketball, gangsterism, or somewhere in between. And many of us went into a lot of it somewhere in between. But again, thankfully, I had a good mother, and the environment wasn't always so good, but the environment at home was always very good. And other than that, it was average childhood, average teenhood until, say, maybe about 14 or 15.
Okay, okay. So you spoke on learning Moorish science at an early age. Do you remember what year it was and what it was about the Moorish science that drew you in?
Oh, most definitely. Like it was yesterday. Um, it was well, let's just say back to the hip hop. It was because of me being in hip hop that, and because of the upbringing at home, that I began to start to hear consciousness. Back then, hip hop, you had clips of Malcolm X, clips of Farrakhan, clips of Khalid Muhammad, clips of the Last Poets. So, and of course, you had Five Percenters. That was, teaching with the supreme alphabet and the science of living and mathematics, so on and so forth. So there was all this consciousness coming in. This was late 80s, early 90s, and so it had to be about 1990 that I got introduced to more science. And so after hearing a lot of Malcolm X, I started seeking out some of the tapes, building with just the sidewalk university teachers, the G's in the neighborhood, finding out where I could find this type of information. Eventually, I ended up studying Islam around 13 to 14 years old. I was
Okay.
studying Islam heavily, and in studying Islam is what led me to Moorish science, because I had ended up practicing Islam for a year or so, and I was actually looking for a Holy Quran of Mecca, uh, the Great Quran of Muhammad. I was looking for one of those, and I called a mosque. And this mosque, there was happened to be a Moor staying in the mosque. He answered the phone, and we started building. And he invited me to a couple of meetings. And pretty much after that, I went to about 3 meetings. I decided 3 science circles, what we called them back then. I decided this was for me. It was Islam, but it had the self identity aspect that was missing from what I'm studying.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, I attended 7 meetings, memorized and performed the lessons I was supposed to perform, got my head shaved, and got my fez. And it
That's,
was a little old tiny fez. Didn't even fit my head all the way, but I wore it proudly, probably for about a couple of years till I got one that fit.
yeah, that's right. I remember a few years back, you had a store called the People Store. Can you tell us what inspired that vision?
So, in demonstrate more science and focusing on and the science of the teachings of Noble Drew Ali and Marcus Garvey, dealing with self-determination and being industrious, I always sought to have different types of markets or venues where Moors could gather, and that Moors could see and look and say, look, we have something of our own. Nation of Islam would have their shops and have their bean pies. The Nation of Islam, as under Wafdi Muhammad, the Muslim community developed out of that, had their shops or had their mosque. Everyone else, of course, has what they have, every other nationality. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt it at a young age, uh, being independent out there, that it was important to have something on Front Street that said more, or gave some indication that, hey, we're here in this area. So this was a later venture. I had a couple of stores before that. I relocated from Los Angeles up to Oakland, and on a mission to open up temples, to spread consciousness, and to influence and stimulate commerce. Uh, Back then, we were using the umbrella of the Moorish trade post to spread these ideas. So when I got to Oakland, I was vending. I decided first I was driving Uber, and Uber started getting crazy. And I said, you know what? Let me just hop out on the table with a corner on the corner with the table like I used to do in Los Angeles, over in Leimert Park, in some of these areas where it looks like it's palatable, and let me see what happens. So I hopped out, and for the first 4 hours, I was successful. And so I said, all right, I'm just gonna do this and depend on Allah. In doing that, we were able to stack our income and also interact with other vendors as we went to farmers markets and flea markets and stuff. And then talking to other brothers and sisters, there was a few of us that decided, hey, why don't we take some of our earnings from the market and get a store? When I moved to Oakland, there was a barbershop. There was some Moors that were meeting in a barbershop, Black Sheep Barbershop. And they just so happened that there was a building open next to them. So I said, well, hey, you know, instead of starting something across the city somewhere, let's get this building right next to them. There was another brother out there who had the same sort of vision. Talk about it. He called together a meeting, and we got together and we did it. Unfortunately, you know, it lasts for a few years. Unfortunately, things changed, the ethers changed, and we had to go. Me and my family had to go our ways. But before we did that, we successfully opened up a restaurant on the other side of the barbershop and created what we used to call Moorish Wall Street. You know, Moorish
Yeah,
American.
yeah.
After that, it was kind of during the COVID time. One of the brothers who worked with us at the restaurant over there had got inspired and opened up a restaurant on the other side of town known as the Grandeur, which was a halal, vegan, and gluten-free restaurant. And so at that time, we kind of opened a small booth in there for about 6 months until we transformed into the Good Life, which we had for a couple of years before we moved out here to Hawaii.
Okay. What other services do you provide to the people? I mean, I know you were doing.
Well,
Go ahead.
Islam. So yeah, as far as business services, I deal in metal fabrication. I'm also a lapidary. I cut stone. I deal in copper, silver, and brass, polishing stone and crystals. That's pretty much the bread and butter. Of course, I'm also an author, and so I do spread and sell literature. Being a Grand Sheik of Moorish Science Temple of America, California, we offer all the services that Moorish Science Temples of America offer: holy day services, marriage obligation services. We did charity, food giveaways. You know, we demonstrate the social duties, and we also have workshops, crafting workshops, where I show youth and also adults on how to make handcrafted jewelry. My Moabitis held workshops on how to do whip shea body butters, hair products. Um, Others also from the temple hold workshops, and just to stimulate, to show people that they can make it on their own. So, and insofar as right now, what we're working on after leaving Oakland and leaving a temple still out there of Moors demonstrating. And of course, the People's Store is still intact, even though we're no longer connected with it. So that still stands as a legacy. The Grandeur is still there. So mission complete, and what we're focused on now is we here moved to Hawaii and partnered with the Aloha Moorish Retreat, who acquired some acres of land out here and is creating basically a Moorish American village, retreat style village. And so we're the first family to come and completely build a model home and stay in that home. We've been staying in it for about close to a year now, fully solar powered, free water, catchment, so on and so forth. So an off-grid community where in unincorporated area where Moors can begin to realize the vision that Noble Drew Ali started in 1928 when he mentioned that he was intending to have villages, towns, where we could govern ourselves according to our own codes and traditions.
On the subject of Moorish science, what is something misleading that you heard when mentioned about Moorish science?
It's unfortunate that there's so many misleading things out there, So to narrow it down to one, just one that's off the top of my head, that kind of universally all people, Moors, unconscious Moors, other nationalities need to understand is that Moor is not a religion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Have a religion, right? But Moor is not a religion. And even though Moors have a religion, Moors are free to practice whatever religion they want. But we do have a religion and a culture of our culture, which stems from our culture, like all other nationalities have a religion that stems from their culture or from their spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very, because the primary premise of Moorish science, when we're dealing with, in a social sense, we're dealing with nationality. And so Moorish nationality is not a religion. And it's something that is missing from the people known as Negroes, blacks, and colors that everyone else has.
Mm-hmm.
And so the emphasis on that. Now, when one joins the Moorish Science Temple of America, which is the highest institution in our Moorish American community,
Mm-hmm.
it then, religion, theology, mysticism, nationality, science, all manner of uh, knowledge becomes relevant. And so it's just important to understand on what level we're dealing, so that we can, avoid confusion.
For the viewers, can you tell the people watching that do not know about the Prophet, who is Noble Drew Ali, and about him?
Yes, indeed. Pardon me.
Mm-hmm.
Noble Drew Ali, in simple terms, is the founder of the Moorish Science of America. At that time was the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, founded in 1913 A.D. in Newark, New Jersey. He was born in the state of North Carolina in 1886. And he is the sole reason, the sole foundation of what some might call so-called Black movements, progressive movements, and Islamic movements in the Americas, for the population known as Negroes, Blacks, Coloreds, and Indians, and even others, so on and so forth. So he is the root. He is our. He's considered a prophet by many in the Moorish American community, by all Moorish Americans, and by many Moors, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And he is the foundation of our movements here. And so he's the root. Everyone else stems from that and have taken pieces from that, but have yet to um, acquire what was set out to be acquired, and have yet to actually solve the problem of nationality and disenfranchisement of our people. So he's our founding father here in North America, and all melanated people, especially so-called Black people, should know about him. And it's by design that they don't.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Before the interview, you told me about your book signing that you had, and you said all your books were sold out. Can you tell me or tell us how many books you've written?
Well, so far, I've published
Or published?
13. I've written about probably maybe 15, 16, but I published about 30. Excuse me, 13. Some, they range in sizes from 30 pages to 100, maybe a couple of 100 pages. And they uh, cover various subjects from, of course, nationality and the term Moor, so that it can be clearly defined and give people enough information to make educated statements about it. I also wrote a book, so that I started with Moors, what they didn't teach you in Black history class. It was kind of my first attempt, riddled with a lot of typos and stuff, so kind of got a little blowback, but great book, more like a reference book. And if you can look past the typos and things, then you'll find a lot of universal knowledge, and even some knowledge that is not so common. I also wrote a book called The Moabite Key. It said Moors are descendants of the ancient Moabites. In our lessons, it says Moors are descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabit the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. And as I looked around, that not much is known in the Moorish community about the ancient Moabites.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to the ancient Moabites, and come to find out there was actual script and a language. And this is very crucial because it is the mother language of the present day Greco-Roman, Latin scripts, and even English. And so I wrote a book called The Moabite Key. Contains over 100 different signs and symbols, and it is the key to understanding Metanetter, Hebrew, Arabic, and Moabite, and a host of other languages that all follow what is known as an Abjad scale script.
Mm.
Also, you know, I also have some Islamic books. Um, one known as Al-Munafiqun, the Dissembler, the Hypocrite, which teaches one about the character traits of the hypocrite and how to avoid that. Also, one Ancient Kemetic Islam and the Preservation of Ma'at, which helps to bridge the gap between ancient Egyptian and Islamic history. And the two popular books, though, uh, that people seem to have clung to and have found most useful are Blackamoor and Murdermore. Blackamoor, bridging the gap between Moor and Black. How do we even go from Moor to Black? And then Murdermore, Kemet until now, the etymology, phonology, semantics, and morphology of the word Moor, stemming from the hieroglyphic plates in Egypt, and then going up through various aspects of the word Moor, because we have to understand the word Moor does not mean only one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The word Moor, very things. It is a people. It is the root word in Moorish American, which is nationality. It is a title. It is a priestly title, ancient priestly title. It is a title of custodian of the noblemen and the rulers. And it is a name for ancient man. Noble Jew Ali says when people were scared to go out because of all of the big animals and things like that, it was the Moor who went out and brought civilization in. So it's a very layered word, and so ones need to really understand what it means in order to understand how to apply it and which context to apply it. So Murdermore I wrote, and so these are just a few of the writings. Of course, I do have the YouTube with hundreds of videos, and Instagram and TikTok as well, where we spread knowledge daily.
I'm gonna put that YouTube link in the description so they can check that out, and then also descriptions to your books and everything so they can reach those books as well.
All right, and I teach from the IG more and TikTok these days. Most of the videos, those were done years ago, except for the shorts that I put up. So just so folks know that.
That's right. We keep mentioning nationality. Why is nationality so important, and why is it why is it so important?
Well, to answer that question, I like to first answer it with another question and then continue, and that is, why is there generally in mass one population on the planet that is void of a nationality, that goes by color, or that goes by all these other terms that are not genuine, and that doesn't give any indication of the legacy of that people? So that being said, so many reasons. I'll start with the divine first. In the Holy Quran of Mecca, the great Quran of Muhammad, there's a verse in there that says Allah created us in tribes and nations, that we may know one another and not despise one another. Mm-hmm. And so if you're a Muslim, or if you consider this to be true, then that means that this is the very nature and the essence and the state that we were born in. Mm-hmm. The bouquet of the family, the different codes and the different customs and traditions that come from different nationalities are to be enjoyed, and to give us an indication as to the mindset and the feelings of the people, not to be something to divide and despise one another about. Excuse me. And then, so that being said, and knowing that all rights stem from the Most High, inalienable rights, right? Mm-hmm. So it's an inalienable right to have a nationality. Also, it's a human right, according to Article 15 of the Declaration of the Declaration of Human Rights. It says that everyone's entitled to a nationality, Article 15. So it's a human right, and that means that to not have one is being deprived of human rights. But most importantly, when one doesn't have a nationality, and that means two things. That means that one has or have come. In order to have a nationality, you have to have a nation. A nation is a society, group of people that have come together under common codes, traditions, rules, regulations, whatever have you, laws, and decide that this is how they're going to live, and they're going to live in that in a common way. So once you have that, you have a nationality. So to deprive one of a nationality is to deprive one of the basic rights of self-determination and
Mm-hmm.
self-sufficiency to govern themselves.
Mm-hmm.
This again is an inalienable right. When you don't have one, most importantly, when you don't have one and everyone else has one, then you're generally subject to abuses that people who do have a nationality aren't subject to, i.e., being stateless, so on and so forth, and ultimately don't have the ability to
We
determine
had
their
a
own
small
destiny.
freeze.
No, all is well. Basically, if you're subject to abuses of those people who do have a nationality, and ultimately you're just deprived of self-determination and the ability to be free and govern yourselves. So this is very important, and also the population known as Negro, Black, and Colored in the Americas and all over the world generally uh, have lost have lost their nationality and are going by chattel terms, slave terms, social constructs,
Mm-hmm.
and are generally subject to abuses. So this issue, for no other reasons than those, needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I think people getting their Black's Law Dictionary is so important, so that they can understand how those words are used politically against us. You know, just an example, it's kind of off subject, but the word minor or minority, as they like to call us,
Mm-hmm.
they say we're the minority, but according to the Black's Law Dictionary, that means you have the mind of a minor, you have the mind of a child. And so
Yes,
just
indeed.
just that there alone, you know, is like why it's important that we should read.
Islam, I mean, every craft, and I should say every society, when you're dealing with those type of terms, you're dealing with law societies, legal societies, jural societies, judicial societies, so on and so forth. There's a language that goes with that.
Mm-hmm.
When you become a language that goes with that. When you become a tax preparer, there's a language.
Mm-hmm.
If you're selling insurance real estate, there's a language that you have to learn in order to understand and comprehend and convey the messages that are conveyed through those particular professions. So the same thing with law, and by knowing law terms like Black's Law and other helpful resources, one can begin
Etymology.
to huh?
I was saying etymology.
Etymology, yes, and also you know uh, linguistics in general, which is why I wrote the book Murder More, which deals with the etymology, phonology, semantics, and morphology. Because
Mm-hmm.
etymology can also be misleading, because the thing about etymology is that you're going back, and so these are the roots of the words, and that's the ether that they begin in, but they do morph over time, and
Mm-hmm.
so they do begin to have other meanings. So we have to see that they do have layers of meaning as well. Some words, terms do become antiquated, and as they become antiquated, they're no longer in use, and so and or have taken on a different meaning. And so we have to be able to know that as well, because antiquated terms in law are not so good as well, because you want to be able to avoid confusion. So
Mm-hmm.
it takes the overall understanding, the semantics, the meaning, how the words morph, the phonology of it, the vibration, the sound, and of course the etymology, the history, and the origins of the words, so that we can have a broader understanding of how the law even evolved, so we can see where we're at now here in modern times, and how we actually deal with the issues today as well.
And I think that goes into denotative and cognotative within the language, you know. It's like you say, the
Mm-hmm.
etymology, but then it morphs, like you said, you know. Uh
Mm-hmm.
Last thing before we end this, do you have a message for anyone that may want to see this or may they watch this?
I would say, universal message is stay high vibrations, practice the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Self-development is the most important development. Before you develop land, before you develop a business plan, before you develop a family, self-development comes first, or at least alongside of that, because sometimes we're thrust into these things and we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. Other than that, feed your mind with knowledge. If you're you're beginning to study, get the purest knowledge you can. Don't just glean everything off of the internet and take it as fact. Really study. Be careful, buyer beware. Be careful of a lot of the confusion and charlatans that are out there, because it's your life at the end of the day. Ultimately, you have to live it. So, selves, continue to study selves, and know thyself, and knowledge is power. That's the greatest message that I think I can send to anyone at this time. If they need assistance with knowledge, then Cozmo Ill, Cozmoel, pretty much on all platforms: Instagram, TikTok, IG. Excuse me, I already said IG. What's the other one? YouTube. So on and so forth. But also, you can get books at Amazon.com by looking up Cozmo Ill Books. Again, that's Cozmoel. And with that, I leave how I came in the humble words of peace and love. Islam.
Islam.